Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie, and today I'm doing my group presentation on my group, which is a stress management group based in a domestic violence shelter here in Phoenix. It's a mindfulness group for children. So, summary of my group is this group is for children who are living with their mother in a domestic violence shelter in the central Phoenix area, which is, as most of you know, it's a large urban area. My group is based solely for kids that are 6 through 13 years old. And the schedule would be a rolling schedule. So it'd be a 6-week rolling schedule with a rolling curriculum. So each week would have focused of mindfulness activities, coping skills to teach the kids stress management skills to help them understand and deal with their anxiety, things like that that they have witnessed with their usually their mother, that they're living with at the shelter. So the intention of the group is to make it a fun activity that kids want to do, that kids want to participate in, while establishing relationships with other kids in the shelter, making it a fun activity. You establish relationships, obviously, with other kids in the shelter, the facilitator of the group. The group would have a large impact on the children, would teach them coping techniques to manage stressful situations. So basically, the first week would be a breathing techniques with one exercise. As we all know, kids like to move. They need to move. So the facilitator would incorporate an exercise, moving around the room, things like that. The second week would also be a breathing exercise with a movement activity. So that could be a simple, stretching exercise, movement activity that the facilitator would use to keep the kids focused, to keep their energy level engaged. The third week would be teaching the kids a grounding activity, and it includes simple yoga activity. The facilitator would need to be um, trained on some simple yoga exercises. The shelter has yoga mats that we could use. Um, the fourth week would be a coloring activity with soft music playing. It's really to help focus the kids and help them manage their stress. Living in a shelter with their parent is stressful enough, but helping them teach them grounding activities because they've witnessed the various forms of domestic violence. The fifth week would be a sensory activity with different objects set up around the room that they could, work through, touch, explore. That could be painting. It could be different objects set up around the room in tubs that they could utilize to help bring their feelings to life. And then the 6th week is a mindfulness practice with a caring activity with a partner, just sharing thoughts, sharing feelings with each other. And then obviously the facilitator would be there to help guide the conversation. So the rationale for the need within the community is there's not a lot of groups available within the Phoenix area and the behavioral health agencies to meet this need. This is specifically a specialized group for children who live in a shelter. And that would help children who have witnessed domestic violence while providing coping skills to manage stressful situations. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some sort of physical violence by an intimate partner in Arizona. Obviously, this directly impacts the safety to the children. It also shows that there's a need for resources, supports, and services to help support the families that have gone through intimate partner violence. In Arizona alone, one child in every 44 minutes will witness domestic violence in their home. And then approximately 304,000 Arizona women have experienced stalking by an intimate partner. Arizona has had 96 domestic violence related deaths since in 2019. That's the latest statistic available. Um, and then groups allow children in a domestic violence shelter to not feel alone and helps them process through their trauma in a non-judgmental place. They get to help build relationships with other children that have experienced this. Evidence-based relevance to social work interventions. This, um, there is no evidence based to show that children exposed to domestic violence that would be impacted as far as this type of group would go. But obviously, there are social, emotional, and behavioral challenges with children that have experienced this, and this would be a trauma-informed approach that the facilitator would take surrounding the language used, the activity used in this type of group. Children do experience depression, low self-esteem, anger, anxiety, and the inability to sustain long-term relationships when they have witnessed to domestic violence in their home. Children's trauma symptoms are lower when the survivor moves out of the home and children get the support and services they need to process their feelings. And this group would hopefully help encompass those um, sort of services and resources available while the parent is staying at the shelter. So basically, this group would meet once in person weekly, and the families usually stay 120 days until they transition out of the shelter in other, like a transitional housing or another apartment building or another housing situation that the parent has found. Again, in the Phoenix area, I couldn't locate any groups specifically for children affected by domestic violence in a shelter setting. And then the group evaluation would be the facilitator would do a pre and post evaluation with the children to see how they handle stressful situations. The facilitator would debrief with the parent to see how the children are using the coping mechanisms taught in the group, in addition to talking to the children about what is working. So the facilitator basically needs to be flexible. They need to include the parent, usually the mother, to see if the children are implementing the coping skills, the strategies that they've used, that they've learned in the group. And then obviously the facilitator would do observations of group dynamics. And then the facilitator would do consistent self-reflection to change group activities to meet the needs in the group. If that includes if there's younger children or older children, to meet the children where they're at with whoever is participating in the group for that week. And ensuring that the group understands the rules and the boundaries, since this is a group for children to teach coping mechanisms. There would have to be a set of rules and boundaries given or provided to the children at each week so they could abide by just a simple rules set up, like no touching each other, no roughhousing, things like that, being respectful, maintaining boundaries. So those rules would have to be set up by the facilitator and reinforced at each week. Obviously, there would need to be some community collaboration. Although not mandatory, it would be beneficial for all the children in the shelter to participate in the group. And there would have to be some education and promoting the group within the shelter, for the parent to reinforce the importance of the children participating in this group. The facilitator would collaborate with the mother on what's working and what is not. Like I explained earlier, that the facilitator would have to be flexible with things that needed to be changed to meet the group where they're at. And there could be other community collaborations like the shelter outreach events to promote the children's group and ensure that the facilitator is educated on trauma-informed care and what specific services work for children in this setting. And this group would be a supportive space for children to create a bond with other like children that have gone through similar experiences, to be able to maintain and obtain a bond with other individuals, and then to strengthen the community while strengthening children's ability to manage stressful situations. Obviously, this group is intended to address the needs in a shelter setting, It builds a connection and it builds resilience among the children that have been um, in traumatic situations like witnessing the domestic violence with their parent. It provides children with coping and stress management skills. It gives children an outlet to connect with other children with a sense of belonging. And it alleviates feelings of loneliness, anxiety, depression, and fatigue. And that is it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed my presentation and learned about the stress management group that I've created. Thank you.